Uh, okay. Okay, that's weird. Hey guys, how is everybody doing? Continuing my Ghostbusters review series, unfortunately, I have to talk about the 2016 female version of the Ghostbusters. Now, a little history on this movie before we begin. This was a movie when it was first coming out. Again, it came out in 2016, which was almost 8 years ago. God, I'm old. And so this movie came about 8 years ago, and if you don't know the controversy with this film, basically, the cast, they were not saying the best things about the fans of Ghostbusters, because, when this movie was announced, people were really optimistic with this movie, and everybody was saying, I don't want this, because we all wanted Ghostbusters 3 at the time. And they say if you have any problem with this movie, or if you don't like this movie, then you're basically a female hater. Which, yes, is very stupid. And like, but they also have to realize this is that you announce this movie like right after Harold Ramis's death. That's gonna create something. But when this movie was coming out, I did not know anything about that, and yet again, I was young and I was dumb at the time. So I was maybe like 2016, 8 years ago. Was like I had to be at least eight. I at least had to be at least 8 years old. I don't know how to do math, but that's how old I was at the time, I believe. And so I gave this movie a fair shot, and I remember when I watched it, I thought it was okay. But back at the time, I was like, okay, I still definitely prefer the first movie, but I thought that was an okay movie. I enjoyed it. But the last time I watched this movie was the day it came out on Blu-ray, and I rewatched it. And since that day, I refuse to rewatch this movie because I just have not any interest in it. But yet again, I've been morbidly curious to check out this movie once again because I don't know how my feelings feel about this movie. Because it's been 8 years, my changes of movies have changed, my changes of anything has changed over the years. So I was really curious to check out this movie to see what it could be like, what this movie is like years later. And let me tell you, wasn't great. However, I do believe that there's some things in this movie that I do think are pretty good. So starting off, I do think the updated effects for this movie and the new effects of this movie, I do think they're very well done. I think, especially since technology has changed a lot, like especially when the original Ghostbusters came out in the 80s and this movie came out during 2010s. Obviously, the effects are going to change a lot. They are going to be very different. And this movie does not disappoint with the looking of ghosts. Like, the ghosts in this movie look great. I think they're at their best.
My name is Erin Gilbert, Doctor of Particle Physics at Columbia.
Slimer is barely in this movie, but the scene that where we do get to see him, I think the effects on him are great. I think the effects during God, excuse me with my voice. I'm a little sick today. And the whole climactic ending with this movie, like when they take down the final villain and all that, I think the effects during the final battle of this movie, I think they're pretty good, especially with the villain when he becomes like a giant marshmallow ghost kinda. I think that all that looks pretty good. There was really no complaints. There was nothing that I saw kind of like stood out and looked horrible. You could tell there was some CGI, but it wasn't horribly noticeable and didn't kill the mood when it came to the updated effects. However, I think the effects in this movie are good and they're great updated effects compared to the original, which that's something it has against the original, kinda. My final positive, I think Chris Hemsworth is great in this movie. I'll talk about more about the comedy in a bit, but his comedy in this movie was just funny as hell. I thought he was great in this movie.
I did the actor thing. Worked
Just
for.
gonna, just real quick. Can I ask why no glass?
Oh, yeah. They just kept getting dirty, so I took them out.
Chris Hemsworth, whenever he's in a movie, I just adore him. He's so funny, and he's known for Thor, obviously. He'll always be known for Thor because that's what the MCU will do to you. But anytime he's in a movie, he'll pique my interest. I absolutely love him, and he's great in this movie to where he plays like the weird, stupid male, which I'll get to as well. But whenever he's on screen, I'm just happy through and through. He's such a delight to watch. I think he's just great throughout the entire movie. He was the reason I was laughing throughout the entire movie. He was so funny, especially when we first meet him. When we think that he's supposed to be this hot, sexy guy, then you find out that he's an idiot and a moron. He's great throughout this entire movie. I loved seeing Chris Hemsworth. Whenever he's in a movie, he's going to be great, you know it. And his comedy is what made me laugh. And it's kind of a shame that we kind of didn't get a sequel to this, because if they announced a sequel, I'd be like, where's Chris Hemsworth? Moving on to the negatives, and unfortunately, besides from Chris Hemsworth, none of the comedy in this movie is good. I think none of the comedy in this movie works for me, because you got all of these great women who I think are pretty funny. You got the one chick that was in the recent Barbie movie that was like the different Barbie, weird Barbie. I think it was Weird Barbie. Yeah, she was the weird Barbie recently. And then you got Melissa McCarthy, who I think is a very talented actress. I love a lot of the comedy that she does. I am a defender of Tammy. I grew up with that movie, so please don't hate me on that. I think Melissa McCarthy is a great actress. I think she's very funny. This is when she was on the top of her career, kinda. I think you got the other two. I don't really recognize them, but you also the main girl in this movie. I forget her name. She was in Wonder Woman 84, which I recognize her most from. I thought she was decent in this movie, but the black chick, what was her name? Fuck, I forget her name. I didn't think she was funny at all in this movie. Not because of her race thing or anything. I just thought she just wasn't funny. Unfortunately, when you get all these cast members that all have great chemistry and seem to be great friends in real life, which I'm glad to see, and I'm glad to see that chemistry carried on to this movie. Unfortunately, but when they're on screen, they're just not funny, because when you see them, you're like, oh, they're going to be ad-libbing a lot. This movie's going to be hilarious. But honestly, so all the jokes in this movie just felt like they just read it from the script. They did not try to have fun with this movie. They did not try to ad-lib in this movie like they did in that original movie. There's just no life in the comedy in this movie, and it's unfortunate, because I think these actresses are very funny women. I think they're very funny, especially Melissa McCarthy. I think she's great as an actress and as a comedic role, but I just did not laugh the entire time when they were on screen. The only time I was laughing is when Chris Hemsworth was on screen, because he was the funniest part about this movie, because they make him just a dumbass, and he's funny in this movie because of it. But unfortunately, just all the jokes that these women are making and all these jokes that they're cracking on screen, it's just not funny. It's like the same joke, and it's like I'm not laughing. I'm not. Okay, I have a feeling that I'm saying this, some guy in the comments is gonna be like, "Oh, you're just saying that because they're women." No, they're just not funny in this movie. Oh, I will say I did watch the extended cut of this movie. I own the version of the movie where it came with the extended cut, or maybe all the Blu-rays of this movie do. I don't know. But I watched the extended cut because I was wondering maybe they were adding things on here that we didn't get to see in the theatrical version. But I don't know if this was the extended version, but there's like a lot of weird scenes to where it's like 3D kind of. You're not wearing glasses, to where things would pop out of the screen, kind of like when a ghost would come after you, or puke, or flying at the screen, or when they're shooting their God, I'm not gonna sound like a Ghostbusters fan here, aren't I? When they're shooting their proton packs, I am a Ghostbusters fan. I did not look that up. I had to remember. I'm bad with memories. When they're shooting the proton packs, like the laser out of it, it's like shooting off the screen. There's like a lot of weird 3D stuff going on, and I didn't notice it until like maybe a few minutes in, and I had to ask my dad, I was like, "Can you come look at this?" He didn't notice it. I don't know if it was just me, but the entire time I was watching this movie, again, I watched the extended cut. There's like a lot of weird 3D shit going on, and it's like, what is going on?
What is going on?
I just don't understand. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if that was meant to be in there. I just don't know. And the villain of this movie, he's like painfully mediocre. He's some like weird guy that just he's like a janitor at a hotel, which is win in my eye. God, he's like a weird janitor at like a hotel, and in the basement of this hotel, he's like building these weird machines with ghosts. First of all, why is nobody checking on this guy? Why is nobody seeing this? That raises a lot of questions, but I won't ask questions apparently. And then we don't even get to. What is wrong with my eye? We don't even get to know the guy, really. Like, he's just like, oh, I want to take over the world because I'm weird and fucking goofy. It's like, hi, who the fuck are you? Can you explain your plan? Because I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I just don't understand what this guy's supposed to be doing. And at the end, he kills himself with the electricity, which is a weird plan. It makes him a ghost, which I thought was pretty cool. And then he takes control of Chris Hemsworth in one scene. He takes control of Melissa McCarthy. And then he takes the form of the little Ghostbusters logo and then becomes like this big giant thing of the movie and anticlimactic. I don't even remember the guy's name, and they don't even explain why he's a villain. Like really, they might have. I just don't remember. It's like, why are you a villain? And what the fuck are you doing, dude? And he's just weird throughout this entire movie, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Can you like stop being looking like a weird pedophile, please? Ew. The way they defeat the villain of this movie. You want to know how they defeat them? They shoot him in the balls with their proton pack. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. You know, I never thought I'd see Ghostbusters defeating a villain by shooting them in the nutsack. Hmm. I think it's incredibly insulting that they did this as a joke. The headquarters of this movie, now in the original first two movies, the headquarters was the firehouse, which is very iconic through and through. You got the symbol outside the building. It's an iconic safe house. God, there's something in my eye. Something in my eye. It's a very iconic headquarters to where I think anyone who sees a firehouse will probably think of Ghostbusters. And you got that funny scene in the original where they're buying the place. But in this movie, they make it a joke. It's like, $21,000 for this, and then well, you want to know where they go? They go to the upstairs of a Chinese place. That's just insulting. They did that as a joke. They did that as a joke. It's like, oh, we don't have the money. You want to know how they got the money in the original? They sold a house. Do something. Sell your old equipment. Do something to get that firehouse, because that is just incredibly insulting as a Ghostbusters fan. That instead of the firehouse, they go upstairs to a Chinese place because there's a scene where Melissa McCarthy orders Chinese food, but it doesn't get there until an hour later, and then that's a whole joke throughout this entire movie. And that joke carries on to their headquarters, and it's stupid. Also, the fact that this is also a remake, and this is not connected to the original, it's not like Passing of the Torch, which I would have preferred. We didn't get that. And they have cameos of the original cast members, and they're just insulting. Because the front desk lady, she has a cameo as a front desk lady at the hotel, and she's barely, you can miss her. Like, it's like a blinking you miss it cameo. Same with Sigourney Weaver. She never even been there. I didn't even see her in this movie until someone pointed it out to me in the comments. Well, not the comments, but when my dad told me. Why did I say comments? I don't know what's wrong with me. Until my dad pointed it out as I was watching it. He had to rewind it and show me. I'm like, well, that was a blinking you missed a cameo. Also, if you have the balls to probably kill the most popular Ghostbusters guy, Bill Murray, Vinkman, who I would argue is the face of the Ghostbusters crew. If you have the balls to throw him out of a window from a ghost, no, you don't get to do that. Then Dan Aykroyd shows up as a taxi driver, and then he says, I'm not afraid of a ghost." Why? Why do we gotta do this? Why are you guys doing this? You're disrespecting that film. I'm done with this. I'm done. At the beginning of my video where I was talking about controversy, where the cast was basically saying, if you don't like our movie, then you're a woman hater. But they definitely took that personal, because in this movie, they make every single guy look like an idiot or a douchebag. Which, sure, a lot of girl movies are responsible for that. They're all guilty of that. And I think if you do it right, it's pretty funny, because it's fun to look at of women making fun of men. Because let's be honest, us dudes, we're pretty stupid. We're all dumb in our own ways. Like, why do you think a lot of guys die? Because we're stupid. And if you do it right, it's funny. But the fact that you have that controversy with them saying that and doing that, and them insulting men in this movie, making fun of them, making them look like all idiots. And there's a part where they're making fun of the mayor and saying that he's the mayor from Jaws. It's like, it's weird watching the movie. Again, if they do it right and actually make it funny, but the fact that you have that controversy carried on, it just doesn't work. All in all, guys, the remake of Ghostbusters, I am not a fan of it whatsoever. I think it's very insulting to that original movie, and how much I love that original movie. I just do not care for this movie whatsoever. It's just embarrassing that they even made this movie, and especially when we would have preferred Ghostbusters 3, and I'm so glad we have these new movies coming out so we can completely forget about this movie. And I'm glad the controversy kind of settled down, but I felt I had to explain this movie, so I'm sorry if you didn't want to hear more of it. I just think that it's just not a very good remake. It's a remake we never wanted. It's a remake that we did not deserve, so unfortunately, I had to discuss this movie, and I'm never going to rewatch it ever again. That's all I gotta say. What do you guys think about the 2016 remake of Ghostbusters? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you for some reason prefer it over the original 1984 version? If you do say that, please leave the room. But let me know in the comments below what you think about this movie, and if you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe with the bell notifications so you will get notified for all my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.